Shima Brightly, class of 1999. I studied Spanish and Hispanic Studies.
Levon Johnny, now Levon had a class of 2004. My major was English and my minor was Peer Education and Human Relations. IC was our safe space on campus. This is where all the students of color came. It was probably one of the only spaces where we felt comfortable being ourselves, where we felt comfortable sharing our experiences, where we had a support system. It was our safe haven on campus. That's my recollection of IC.
Yes, I got connected to IC from some of my friends, because most of the students of color when I was here that knew about this house is because this is the main location for their main meeting place during the summer for HEOP.
Yes.
But I wasn't an HEOP student,
Right.
so I didn't have an immediate connection. It was maybe my second year or even my third year that I knew about this house and I would come here. And yeah, Levon is right, it was a safe space. It was a place you could just be silly and talk about different things that was going on, either to us personally, off campus, or even while we were here. And we supported each other. And unfortunately, many times this house was threatened to be taken away from us, and this is the only space that we had, and I think to some degree still have.
Oh man, I did everything. I was on the executive board. I don't remember what my position was, but I know I did CSA, the Caribbean Students Association. I was involved with the Black Student Union. We had the Pan-African Asian Latin Outreach at the time. I know that doesn't exist anymore, PALO. So most of the diversity, the clubs that, that try to infuse diversity on campus, I was involved in most of those clubs. I would also say that I was an activist on campus. Probably that angry black woman on campus.
Focused and determined and outspoken black woman on campus. Write your own narrative.
Yes.
One challenge that I had that still sits with me is I took a sociology class and I ended up being like the voice for all the black students, which was a little uncomfortable, but at the same time I had to share certain truths as well because some of the information that was being shared was not accurate. So that's one. And then the others, there were opportunities where with the student organizations we wanted to get certain things done, and we were always finding a barrier.
It was always a fight.
But meanwhile, the other groups, the majority groups, they didn't have those challenges that we had. So that was very, very frustrating. But at the same time, we were able to have a few successes and to some degree have certain things. It empowered us in certain ways because we were able to bring alums of color back to campus, and the school as a whole has been trying to do that for a number of years, especially very affluent alums, and we were able to do that, and that was a success. And I think the social climate being what it was our fuel to get it done, and it was successful.
There were many, many challenges. One of the greatest challenges that I experienced here, coming here as, with a vision, knowing that I wanted to be a science major, knowing that I wanted to become a physician, and from my second week being told, that being a doctor is not the only career in the medical field, why don't I look into nursing and public health instead? And having to change my major because of the racism that existed, within the science department at the time, having to change my major. And I became an English major. I was satisfied, becoming an English major. But there were definitely diversity issues here when I was a student here. There were issues of racism when I was a student here. And we tried to make our voices heard, and we were successful in many different ways. But at the same time, I still felt as if there was tremendous work to do. And I'm just hoping hoping things have changed. And when I heard, that diversity has increased to, 20-something%. I mean, we're taking steps in the right direction, but I still feel like there's so much more work to be done. But I think that was one of my one of my main struggles here. Just feeling as if, as a student of color, your voice was not heard, that you constantly had to prove yourself. You constantly had to, be that person. I was one of the only, persons of color in my class, and I was that voice for every single person of color, when different issues came up, in class discussions and so on and so forth. So that was definitely a challenge. I've gotten feedback from a few students, and I've heard that the climate in terms of diversity, there are still issues on campus. But what I really want students to know, my first few years after graduating, I was very resentful, to be honest. I would not set foot back on this campus. It took me 15 years to come back to this campus. But what I want them to know, as you grow older and as you reflect and as you realize that all those experiences are meant for your own refinement. So had I not gone through all the racial issues that I had gone through here, had I not experienced all the diversity issues, had I not been that fighter that I was on campus, I would not have been molded into the person that I have become. And I would not have been prepared in academia. I'm an educator, and all of these experiences, define who I have become as a person. All of these experiences define who I have become as a parent, even, as a wife. All of these experiences become who you are. So at the time when you're in the situation, it may seem as if, it's all negative and it's all fighting, and there's no way out. But when you do step out and years later, when you reflect, you realize, what? All of these experiences, they mold you and they just refine you so that you are able to take your rightful place in the world. I tell people, because of HWS, I can walk into any space and own that space as a woman of color, because I know what I have gone through. I know how I have been empowered because of my experiences. So I can walk into any space and not only just own the space, but change the space. So that's what I want to share with students of color especially.
Powerful.
Very.
I'd like to share the importance of showing up and being present. They say you can get invited to the party but not asked to dance, not invited to dance. But sometimes you have to get on the floor yourself and start the dancing.
It's a great analogy.
Right? and I share that because this school, they always say it's a microcosm of the real world, and it's true. What goes on at this school is not very different from other private liberal arts colleges, because there are few of us here, period. So that means you have to show up and be present. And when there are challenges, instead of you sitting and complaining, you need to sit and say, okay, well, how can we fix this?
Yes.
How can I change something within me to address that issue? And I say that because you can't control other people. You can only control how you react to the situation.
Yeah.
So there are hundreds of alums of color. Granted, all of us do not come back, but you have resources to say to someone in this office, Intercultural Affairs, I need help. Can you connect me to? And get that done, because we've been where you are, and we can help you with the tools to get through it. And then when you leave, you got to pay it forward and help make it better for the next generation, right? The next set of students. So that means you need to be present and show up all the time, because our ancestors did it, and then we need to continue that. I don't want to hear the same narrative 30 years from now. In order to change the narrative, we have to change how we do certain things. And like Levon said, she owns the space when she gets in there, because she's taken what she's learned here and been through here and allowed to be beneficial to her, not to cripple her. I'm done.
Yep.